SEP FanFic Readings presents Thanks to the Photographs by Unstable Hufflepuff. Chapter 28. All credits now go to Granger. Hermione had no idea where Draco was. He had woken up before her that day, gotten dressed, and kissed her goodbye while she was still half asleep, telling her that he had a few things to take care of and that he would see her later. She was now leaving the Great Hall with Neville and Veronica, having just finished dinner, and he had yet to return. Creature, too, was missing. In fact, she had not seen him in days. Harry and Ginny were to visit that evening, and Hermione wondered if that was why Draco hadn't come back yet. Perhaps he had finished what he'd set out to do and was now stalling. Or perhaps something terrible had happened, and she would not know until an Auror showed up at Hogwarts to tell her that he— "Don't even go there," she thought to herself, taking a steady breath. She supposed it was a little unreasonable to be so worried, but she could not help it. She had not gone an entire day without seeing him in months. She almost didn't know what to do with herself when he wasn't there. When they arrived at Neville's office a few minutes later, she plopped down on the sofa and made to put her feet up, only to realize Draco's lap was not there for her to rest them on. Instead, Veronica took the seat beside her, carrying on with the seemingly endless tirade she'd started when they left the hall. And then, Nev, with her tongue, and my brain just about melted. I couldn't even think, there was nothing fucking up there. And then, I can't even say what happened. She collapsed backwards, her breath leaving her in a rush. Fuck, I'm in love. That's all very nice, Veronica, Neville said, sitting down on his armchair. But who are you talking about? Is this the new seamstress at Madame Mulkin's? No, I don't talk to Annika anymore, said Veronica dismissively. And she was just experimenting, the bitch. Is it Madame Puddifoot's granddaughter, then? What was her name again? Maribel, and no, not her either. Hooking up in the tea-shop bathrooms just isn't for me. I'm talking about Hermione's friend, Sophia. She's Italian, and she tastes like Honeyduke's finest. Hermione was rather sure Sophia had tasted like Honeyduke's finest for a reason, but decided not to say anything. Oh, right. I forgot you three went to meet Hermione's friends from Italy, said Neville, leaning back in his seat. How'd it go? I bet it was nice to see them again. So very nice, muttered Hermione darkly, crossing her arms over her chest. I had a wonderful time. Neville stared at her. I could be mistaken, he said slowly, but judging by your tone, I'm going to guess that you did not, in fact, have a wonderful time. Yeah, it was pretty fucking terrible, said Veronica casually. Turns out Adler is a right prick. Draco punched him in the face. Oh. Yes, that's, don't say nice, something. Nice one. He deserved it, said Hermione coldly. He refused to contact the editor about Transfiguration today. I wanted him to add my name to our article, but Malcolm basically told me it was a waste of time and resources. Oh, I'm sorry, Hermione, said Neville, wincing. That's not fair at all. You deserve recognition for all the work you put into that. Yes, I do. You should contact the editor yourself, said Veronica smartly. Better yet, show up at the magazine's office with your Order of Merlin and just wave it in front of his face, like, hey bitch, remember me? I saved the world. Now add my fucking name. I don't know, just an idea. No, I like that one, said Neville, nodding seriously. Anthony Cartwright has a muggle-born daughter-in-law. If it weren't for Hermione, Harry and Ron, and you, Neville, said Hermione sternly, and me, I guess, then she likely wouldn't be here today. I don't think it's very ethical to use one's fame in order to get ahead, but if he thinks you're bad for their image, well, that's just not true. He needs to be reminded of what you've done for him and his family, for everyone's families. What we've done for everyone's families. How the fuck did you know he's got a muggle-born daughter-in-law? Asked Veronica. My Gran is actually a good friend of... Neville broke off, blinking. Oh, yeah, Gran. Well then, problem solved. Gran can go all Augusta Longbottom on Cartwright, and he'll have no choice but to add your name. Really? Said Hermione, sitting up straight and uncrossing her arms. She looked at Neville with wide, hopeful eyes. Would that really work? Have you met my Gran? Oh, my goodness, she gasped, jumping to her feet. She rushed over to hug him. Oh, my goodness, Neville, thank you. Neville chuckled slightly, patting her on the back. It's really no problem, Hermione, he said warmly. What are friends for? Thank you. Don't mention it. I'll just owl Gran tomorrow, and she'll have it taken care of by lunch. Mark my words. Hermione was still hugging him when Harry and Ginny arrived a few minutes later. It was only to hug them instead that she finally released him. "Allow me to update the two of you on what you've missed," Veronica said once they were all seated again. "Malcolm Adler's a bastard. His assistant Sophia has a glorious arse. Draco's off on some mysterious mission, and Nev's Gran is going to bully the editor of Transfiguration today into adding Hermione's name to the article on her and Adler's food-increasing spell." Ginny blinked slowly, taking all this in, then turned her head to exchange a meaningful look with Harry, who cleared his throat and said, "I don't reckon that last bit will be necessary." Hermione raised an incredulous eyebrow. "Don't misunderstand me," he said hastily. "I absolutely believe you should get all the credit you deserve. It's just that, well, Mrs. Longbottom won't need to interfere because it's currently being taken care of." "What is that supposed to mean?" she asked sharply. Harry scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. "I'm not really supposed to say," he said, "but Malfoy came to see me today, and, well, he came to ask if he could use my name for something. I'm pretty sure he went to see Ron about the same thing." Veronica let out a surprised laugh, and Neville's eyebrows nearly disappeared into his hairline. "Draco went to see Ron," said Hermione, certain that she had not heard him correctly. Draco Malfoy, went to see Ron Weasley. Willingly."
Yeah."
Yeah," she mocked, scowling. "Don't you, yeah me, Harry James Potter? Tell me what you know."
"I can't," said Harry apologetically.
"He can't," confirmed Ginny, nodding. Hermione gaped at them, her mind racing. She could not think of a single reason why Draco would take it upon himself to visit Ron. He wanted to use his and Harry's names? What for? "Also," Harry said sheepishly, "he told me to tell you that he would be staying at Zabini's place tonight." "Oh, no," she thought, catching on. "Blaze's place here, or Blaze's place in Italy?" she asked carefully. Harry did not meet her gaze, and that was answer enough. "What is he doing, Harry?" "He promised not to say anything," said Ginny, giving her a stern look. "You'll find out soon enough, anyway. Leave it." Hermione slouched against the back of the sofa, her arms crossed again. She caught herself pouting and immediately fixed her expression. That, she decided, was another side effect of spending so much of her time with Draco. It was funny, in a way, that she found his dramatics so terribly endearing when, back in school, she, Harry, and Ron had repeatedly complained about them. That was not the only trait of his that she had come to adore, either. His pompousness certainly did not rile her up any more. No, now she thought his little strut and the way he tilted his chin up so that he could look down his nose at people was downright adorable. It was also adorable every time she watched him fuss over his hair, and the way he nearly whimpered when she refused to give him what he wanted, both in bed and out, was endlessly amusing. She liked that he wasn't always as tough as he pretended to be. She liked when he gave up control. She liked that he gave it to her. Perhaps it was that built the trust that they shared. He let her be in control, proving that he trusted her, and in turn, she trusted him for doing just that. If he was in Italy, more specifically Venice, trying to do something purely for her benefit, then Hermione wanted to do something for him in return. The quarters they now shared lacked any real evidence that she wasn't the only one living there. She decided to change that. They shared a life together. There should be tangible proof of that whenever someone came into their rooms. Therefore, the following morning, she visited Knott Manor to collect photographs of Draco from Theo and Pansy, ones from after the war and before it. Some taken prior to attending Hogwarts, even. Theo had known him since they were in nappies, so he had quite a lot of them. He even had a few tokens from their days in Slytherin House that Hermione added to their quarters. A Slytherin banner, an old Quidditch jersey, a silver snitch with a serpent engraved on it, a slightly horrendous chalice that was in the shape of a cobra, the bottom of it coiled prepared to strike, and its jaw unhinged at the top to attack. She then went shopping in Muggle London to find various silver and green decorative pieces to incorporate in both the main room and the bedroom. She even purchased a Quidditch-themed calendar at Quality Quidditch Supplies, though it did pain her to do so. It had taken roughly 10 minutes of internal debate before she was able to enter Diagon Alley for that particular purchase, but it turned out that she had no reason to be nervous. She was still stared at, but no one seemed all that peeved over her presence. A few witches actually approached her to apologize for ever thinking poorly of her, especially after all she had done in the war. Hermione was in a wonderful mood when she finally returned to Hogwarts. There was even a bit of a bounce in her step. She spent the remainder of the day redecorating she and Draco's living quarters, only breaking for dinner. And by the time the sun had gone down, it was fairly obvious that a Slytherin lived there. She placed a small silver lion figurine on the bookshelf to balance it all out a little. When Draco finally returned at 9:30, she was sitting on the sofa, attempting to read but not managing to grasp a single sentence. She shot to her feet when the door opened, immediately setting the book aside. "Italy, Draco!" she said, her voice much higher than she expected. "What were you doing in Italy? Harry said you went to see him and Ron. Ron, Draco! Why the fuck did you—" "Relax," he said calmly, smiling. "I'm going to explain, I promise. Just sit down for a minute." Hermione glared at him, her arms crossed, and he waited patiently. After a moment, she huffed and retook her seat on the sofa. Draco came over to sit beside her and took one of her hands in his own. "Yesterday morning I did, indeed, go see both Potter and the Weasel," he said carefully, and then shook his head when she opened her mouth. "Let me finish. I needed their approval for something. The Weasel was surprisingly civil, though that might have been because I told him Potter had already agreed. After that, yes, I did go to Italy. I had some, shall we say, snooping to do. Creature helped. Anyway, this afternoon I visited the headquarters of Transfiguration today." He gently released her hand to retrieve a document from within his bag. Looking as though he was struggling to suppress a smirk, he handed it to her. "That will be published in their March issue. Cartwright let me bring a copy for you to have and look it over. If there's anything you'd like changed or worded differently, we can let him know and he'll have it taken care of." Hermione stared at him, part of her wanting to shout at him for going behind her back, and another part wanting nothing more than to kiss him senseless. Draco nodded towards the document encouragingly, and, taking a deep breath, she began to read. "In our April 2004 issue, we released a scholarly article explaining the creation and utilization of a spell with the power to multiply one's food supply, despite the exception of food conjuring and Gemp's law of elemental transfiguration. Credit for this discovery went to the 31-year-old British transfiguration master Malcolm Adler, who had previously studied at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and had achieved his mastery under the tutelage of the highly respected Master Lorenzo Berlusconi. In truth, Adler was one of 2 people responsible for the creation of the food increase spell, Auget Vestra Sebum. The other person responsible was then 24-year-old war heroine Hermione Granger, Order of Merlin First Class, who had been studying under Adler at that time. Due to a lapse in judgment on our part, and Adler's own selfishness, Granger's name was left out of our original article. The idea for the food increase spell came from one of Granger's nightmares, which she had been riddled with since the end of the Second Wizarding War. She, along with Harry Potter, Order of Merlin First Class, and Ronald Weasley, Order of Merlin First Class, spent the 1997-1998 school year on the run from you-know-who's forces. The 3 were starving for a large portion of that time, and after revisiting it in a dream, Granger decided that something must be done so that no other witches or wizards would be forced to share their experience. Due to information concerning Adler's character that has recently come to light, his name has been officially removed from the creation of the food increase spell, and all credits now go to Granger. Adler currently runs his own lab in Venice, Italy, which is where Granger studied for the 2 years that she spent earning her mastery. 23-year-old Italian witch Sofia Ricci served as Adler's assistant during this time, and a 20-year-old squib named Gianna Russo worked at the lab as a part-time researcher. Adler has been revealed to have abused his position of power over all 3 young witches, and it is for this reason that Transfiguration today no longer associates with him. She leaned back, stunned. The final sentence repeated itself in her head, almost like an echo. She hadn't even realized that it would appear that way, that it was that way. Now that she thought about it, however, it made sense. She remembered the day that Gianna Russo was hired. 5 people had applied for the researcher position, 4 of whom were wizards. Hermione had commended Malcolm on his progressiveness for hiring a squib. Magic wasn't necessary for research anyway. But that hadn't been his reasoning at all, had it? "You need to relax, to release some of that tension. I can help with that." "It won't mean anything, Hermione. Just sex between friends. It'll clear your head, you'll see." "Do you have any idea how good sex is for your health? It causes your body to release both endorphins and oxytocin, making you relax. It can even help stave off anxiety and depression. Don't you feel better now, Hermione? I bet you'll feel twice as good if Sophia joins us. Don't you want that?" She felt sick and stupid. Wasn't she supposed to be smarter than this? Wasn't that what she was famous for? Her intelligence? She turned to Draco, who no longer looked at all that pleased with himself, and opened her mouth only to close it again, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You didn't realize he was like that," he said softly. "Did you?" Hermione shook her head. "I'm sorry," said Draco, frowning slightly. "I thought you'd be happy that everyone was going to learn the truth. I suppose I didn't think. We can edit that bit out if you like," he added hastily, taking the document from her. "No one has to know if it makes you uncomfortable, or—" "Don't. Leave it how it is." He gave her a searching look. "Are you sure?" "Yes," she said, turning away again. She rested her head on the back of the sofa and stared at the ceiling. "That's what he deserves. For everyone to know. Did you speak to the others?" "God, the others," she thought. "That sounds awful." "To Sophia and Gianna?" "I did. They're both currently writing their letters of resignation. Sophia says she's going to finally travel. Apparently, Adler told her there was no reason to if she was happy where she was." Hermione nodded slowly. "And they're fine with it?" she asked. "With the information getting out?" "I don't believe either one of them are entirely comfortable with it," said Draco hesitantly, but she could hear him shifting around in his seat. "But they said the same thing you did. And it's what he deserves. I'm sorry, Hermione." She sighed heavily, letting her body fall sideways into his, and he wrapped an arm around her, drawing her closer. "I love you," she murmured. "I know," Draco said quietly, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I love you too." "Thank you." He shrugged one shoulder, the one she wasn't leaning against. "It's what you deserved." They both fell silent. Hermione couldn't find it in herself to speak. She wasn't angry or outraged. She was simply tired. She could hear the steady beat of his heart, feel the slow rise and fall of his chest, and focused on that to distract her from her thoughts. After several minutes, Draco suddenly straightened up and said loudly and incredulously, "Are there serpents on that pillow?"